Knobs. More specifically, Dad's knobs. Yes, welcome back to Raoul's house. Yes, welcome back to Raoul's house. And yeah, we're looking at a biscuit tin full of knobs. And when my father died, about 3 years ago, I'd lose track of time. And I moved in here. I noticed this biscuit tin full of knobs in his shed. And I thought, well, they're not going anywhere. And I'll tell you why I say that. It's because if you're looking for a knob, particularly something that's missing, where the hell are you going to get it? You know, what are you going to do? Ring up Sanya and ask them if they'll send you one? You've got no chance. So, you know, he obviously kept this tin because he thought it would come in handy. And like me, he'd built little electronic circuits. And, you know, you need a knob, you know, particularly if it's got volume on it or something to do with radio, maybe tune it. That one's heavy. That's solid alley, that one. So what I'm going to do, look. I'm going to pan very slowly across these, move that out of the way, and I'm doing this because if you repair radios, you may be thinking to yourself, I need that knob to finish whatever. Well, that's a chunky one, isn't it? Old one as well. That's got to be 1940s, 50s. If you look through this tin and you think, I'm after one of those knobs, I can't get one anywhere, give me a nudge. And I'll probably put it in the post for you, because I'm never going to use all of these, and it seems only fair to share them. Yeah, and the one thing, actually, my father and I were like, let's put it this way, we're at opposite ends of a very long pole in terms of personalities, but there were aspects about him that I did like. Very knowledgeable man on music, good pianist. He could only play for music, didn't play from his head. You put a piece of music in front of him, he could play it. And play it very well until he got into his latter years. And then I think that upset him greatly, really, not being able to play the piano. He did mention it a couple of times because it was the love of his life, really, playing the piano. And though I didn't share that interest, I did like to hear him play. I think we all did. Yeah. But when he was a boy, like me, the first thing well, not the first thing, but one of the things he got into was a crystal set. And I've spoken to other people, you know, like ham radio operators, and they all say the same thing. Yeah, I had a crystal set when I was a lad. And I think when you get a crystal set and you've got very minimal components, perhaps 4, and a set of crystal headphones, and no battery, and you can listen to stations around the world, you never get over that. And it tends to stick. And even if through your working life you perhaps don't get into radios, sooner or later you do, you get back to it. And that's kind of what's happened to me, because I'll just show you, I've really now started to, I've had so many components come in, resistors, capacitors, that sort of stuff, even in the last week, which I'm still trying to catalogue and put in various boxes. But knobs, yeah, they're going to come in handy. So if there's a knob in there and it perked your attention, give me a nudge, or leave a message underneath and I will get back to you. How's that? I may be keeping these though. I've got a couple of those because I've got a Malachite SDR RTL radio coming. I've got really into that. I've got a couple of really good shortwave sets. I like this software defined radio because it's very tiny. You know, it's no bigger than a transistor radio. Yeah, amazing thing. So I'll be showing that one. It arrives, but I think it'll be in about a month. Anyway, during the week, lots of things. What have I done during the week? Well, we had those storms. Do you remember those? Yeah, well, I thought, well, I don't think I've lost anything. I sort of walked around the property, couldn't see any loose tiles or anything. Luckily, my father fitted a new roof. But then the other day, this was when all the storms died down, I pulled up outside and noticed that the fence between me and my neighbour and it's a very low fence, it's a front fence, was on the floor. So I thought, oh no. So, and unfortunately, according to the deeds of this house, it's one of the drawbacks, I'm responsible for every single fence around my property. It's a bit mean, isn't it? But my neighbours are pretty accommodating in that way. They'll go, well, I'll meet you halfway, which is good, isn't it? And if you've got neighbours like that, trust me, you want to hang on to them. Yeah, that was a thumbs up, by the way. Anyway, so I knocked on his door after giving it some thought, because I thought, well, that's going to be another 300 or 400 quid to replace that, you know. And how long is it going to last anyway? 10, 15 years, and then I'm going to be doing it again. So I said to him, I'll tell you what, how about if we just have a hedge between us instead of a fence? I mean, I've never seen a hedge blow over. I'm sure it's not impossible, but I've never seen it happen. So he said, yeah, well, we're not that bothered about it. I think really they just want it looking tidy, don't they? So anyway, I've been out there today healing in privet cutting. Well, they're not cuttings, they're bare root privet plants, and healing them in and then giving them a good water, a good feed, so they'll settle in. And then next week I'm going to put in a very low sort of trellis type fence, just to tidy that edge up for them in their garden. It won't cost me too much, perhaps 20 quid. So the whole thing would be about 60 quid to do it, as opposed to 300, 400 for the fence. I just can't see the point. And particularly as my front wall and fence above it is also deteriorating, and I've really got to look at that and decide what on earth I'm going to do with it. But if I can keep my neighbours happy on that side, that's a good start, isn't it? And what else have I been doing in the week? Well, I'm working part-time, which sort of breaks my week up a little bit. But I have been busy inside the house. I got rid of my fridge. Well, I didn't get rid of it. It's still standing in my hallway. I had a freezer, which, and because energy prices are going up. Sorry, do you want a different view instead of knobs? Have a look at my keyboard. Yeah, that's for people with limited eyesight. Mine's getting that way. Highly recommend that as you get older. Yellow keys and black print, much easier to see. Anyway, yeah, so I've been doing various bits around the house, and this fridge freezer, I just felt with the price of energy prices, it was a waste of time because I wasn't using the freezer part below. I was only using the fridge. So I've been on the hunt for a fridge. Then one came up on Facebook Marketplace. Nearly new, hardly used, 30 quid. I thought, well, I'll have that. So now I've got a fridge freezer, perfectly good, and A++ rating, standing in my hallway that I no longer need. So hopefully someone will take that off my hands. I don't want much for it, but just a little bit. It'll just help pay for the fridge. And yeah, so I was doing that, and also I'm at a point now where I need to finish the wiring in the hallway so I can paper and decorate the opposite wall, because obviously over winter it's been very cold, hasn't it? And I'm 63 now, and what tends to happen in the winter is, well, everything goes on slow in the winter, isn't it? Nobody wants to go out and do anything because it's cold. I never work on cars in the winter, and that's something I love to do, actually. So I don't do that. And yeah, so I'd slowed up considerably, but I thought I'll get back into doing that hallway now, in between, you know, doing shifts at work. I won't tell you who I'm working for. That's really neither here nor there. Let's just say it's a big hotel chain. I work for them. And yeah, so I've been doing that in the week, and also this. The trouble with stripping paper that has been there years, and particularly when it's this sort of chip paper stuff. Well, it's textured anyway. It's no good soaking it because it won't get through the paint. So whatever you do, you've got to get off that top layer. And actually, this hallway, which is what I'm doing, has been tedious to say the least. Just something you've got to get on with. And then you see all the surface stuff. See this stuff? That will come off easily with soapy sponge. Yeah, a bit of washing up liquid in the water. But it's getting this top stuff off. It's a nightmare. But it's what you have to do, isn't it? Yeah, because what I'm going to do is put smooth lining paper over this. I've decided to keep this picture rail, that's what it's called. If it's down further down, I think it's called a dado rail, but this is a picture rail, which is very common in 1930s houses. And then you'd have those metal clips with a hook on the bottom to hang your picture of your great granny on. But yeah, I'm going to keep this because the temptation is to rip all this out, modernise it. But to be honest, I don't see the point. Plus the fact it means, you know, I can continue with the red down here and stick with white here. Definitely keep the white at the top, you know, to get as much light in. In common with a lot of these 1930s houses, they do tend to be a little bit dingy in the hallway. And I've looked at all kinds of ways of trying to improve that, including even putting a stained glass panel in the wall. But I think in the short term, we'll concentrate on getting it in good decorative order. And also, the architrave around these doors is kind of unique to the 1930s. And if you put modern stuff in, it doesn't look right. I've kept some back, but I'm still going to be short, so I'm going to have to make some of that on a router, I expect. Well, to get as close to it as I can. I've looked on the net, but you definitely can't get that stuff. They don't make it anymore. Anyway, I shall plod on with this laboriously. Well, somebody told me the other day we've got a heat wave ahead. I'm sceptical of these things. I'm sure they read them in the Sun newspaper.
Only in the Sun.
Because they're always forever getting it wrong. Anything for a headline, I guess. But anyway, I thought, renewed enthusiasm. Let's crack on and get this hallway finished. At least get it stripped and prepped and all the holes filled and plaster smoothed over. Ready so I can redecorate. Yeah. Now and again, you can get... They need to be flexible, I tell you, when you're doing chip paper. You don't want a stiff scraper. And ideally one with a bit of an edge. The thing with wallpaper scrapers, always keep your hand behind the front blade, same as you would with any knife. You can use two hands on it if you like, but for goodness sake, keep them behind that. You give yourself a nasty cut. And I don't know if I mentioned it before. I think I did. Because I caught the first wave of COVID, whatever that strain was called, and it laid me out for about 4 or 5 months, you know. And I've spoken to people who've had it since. I had the newer ones, you know, said they had terrible headaches and joint pain. Oh yeah, I had the joint pain. I didn't have the headaches, but the problem is I did sort of recover from it, but it's left me what's the word for it? Worn out, I suppose, is the best word for it. And I get some days when, and I try not to worry about it, but I get some days when I just sleep nearly all day, and then I'm up for about 4 hours, and then I'm worn out, and then I have to go back to bed again. I do have sympathy for anybody who suffers from ME, because it's very similar symptoms, and brain fog. You know, learning new skills is a big problem for me. Well, particularly when it's alien to me. I'm basically doing a part-time job as a clerk, and I find it mind-numbingly boring. But you know, you got to do what you got to do to earn, haven't you? But I do struggle with it. I'm constantly being reprimanded in my job for missing the obvious. So, you know, I'm really having to try and focus as best I can. Plus the fact in my right eye, I've got a cataract. I've had it for a couple of years. And most of the time I don't notice it because my left eye compensates. And it's like looking through a chain link fence. You know, you don't see the fence if you're looking through to the other side, do you? And it's a bit like that. But I do find that some days when I get up, I've got to be up a couple of hours before my right eye has got enough vision for me to be able to function and drive, etc. Which is a nuisance. So, you know, if I'd woken up late and had to get to work in half an hour, I've got no chance. I'd have to take a taxi because I just wouldn't be able to drive. So, you know, these are things I'm having to deal with. And of course, we've got a long NHS waiting list now, which doesn't help. Dentists is just a joke. The whole British nation, dental hygiene's at an all-time low, you know. And it took me a long time to get in to see my dentist, at which point I had to have 2 teeth removed. It's not great, is it? But I suppose I'm alive, that's the thing. Yes, well, we'll plod on. You know, if you own your own home, there are a lot of things that you take for granted. And I've spent a lot of time in rented, actually, which is fine, except if you've got a hobby, it's really difficult because often you're restricted by room. Even worse, you're restricted by neighbours, that maybe the people upstairs make a lot of noise, or the people downstairs do, or there's a fight, you know, all the sort of things that go with it. But one of the things that has happened since I moved into my dad's house is I've become very settled, and I wouldn't say stuck in my ways, no, not quite, but because I don't have a woman in my life, and I can assure you that is choice at the moment. I do have ladies that I spend time with, you know, socially, or I might go out with my sister-in-law for the day, and we have a really funny day. She's quite a giggler, and it's fantastic. I have that sort of company without any of the attachments. And one of the good things about living on my own, or at least with my son, is I don't have to worry about things like, what are all these tools doing in the kitchen? I don't have any of that. In fact, I was saying to a friend of mine the other day that if I wanted to, I could bring my camper engine in during the winter, put it in the kitchen, and rebuild it on the kitchen table. Now, no self-respecting woman is going to put up with that, and I get that. But it's my house, and I choose to do what I choose to do, don't I? But one of the bugbears for me, particularly since I've started cataloguing all that, they're all electronic components. I've put them all in the right values now. Still got a few more to do over here, but we're getting there. Trying to organise myself so that I can find stuff. Now, if you're in rented, you can't do this. Things sit in cardboard boxes. You just haven't got the room to do it. But I came across this in Lidl. £22.99. Now, I'm not, I can assure you, short of screwdrivers. I've got probably 100 down the garage. But they are down the garage. And every time I want some obscure screwdriver, I have to traipse all the way down there and then find it's the wrong size and then go back. It's annoying. Anyway, but I came across this. It's called an XXL screwdriver kit. They have done them fairly regularly over the years and improved the design a little bit. There was an electrical testing screwdriver in there. I've swapped it for one of my favourite screwdrivers because I don't like those electrical, you know, the ones with a little neon light in it. Dangerous things. I just don't think. Get a proper tester. Anyway, but it does come with it if you want that. But the earlier versions of this, to get these tool bits out, you have to unclip something this end. Not now, look. It clicks back into place. And I did check, because you see these are all numbered as to what the RT5s are, the relevant sizes. When you pull the bit out, it does actually have the size on the bit, so you know where it's meant to go. I did like that. Precision screwdrivers, you know, with the rotating top. Socket bits. Cranked screwdrivers. Not often. The only times I've ever used one of those is on a bicycle, if I remember rightly. But occasionally you do get a cramped space, you can't get a screwdriver in, that's the only way you're going to get the screw out. But for the bits, it also comes with ratchet. It's got one of those. It's got a smaller one for these. I mean, these are going to be soft steel. You want to be really doing very tiny screws with that. And I couldn't believe that, a bottle opener. I don't know why I'd need one, but I've got one. Yeah, so there are a couple of those. So the set, I think, is fairly complete. But the good thing is I haven't got to traipse all the way down the garage. It's on a very sturdy stand. Doesn't take up a lot of space. And if you do need a screwdriver, you're going to find it here, because it's got the lot. And for $22.95, what would you get for $22.95 in screwdrivers? Not all that lot. Yeah, and there are also insulated ones up to 1,000 volt. I think that's good enough for domestic mains work anyway. So yeah, not to be overlooked, the LIDL XXL screwdriver set. And no, I'm not affiliated with them. In fact, I don't even shop in Lidl regularly. Just certain items I go in there for, mainly Rice Krispies and pasties, because Aldi doesn't, well, they do them, but they're not such a good deal, or they're not as good. Simple as that. I think if Aldi could match those two items, they'd have me 100%. And so hopefully, because I've got another toolbox that I don't have in front of me at the moment, it's a smaller one, and it's got really odd tools that you would generally use on a valve set, and some of them are also used in medical applications like forceps, because old valve sets, they don't use circuit boards. It's all point to point, literally wire to wire, blob to blob, soldering iron everywhere and tags, and the wires are wrapped around and they're generally tight, and you need forceps to tug them out, and you also need a big soldering iron, about 100 watt, when you're working on stuff like that. So I keep a special toolkit just for working on valve sets. There we go, Lidl's XXL screwdriver set. Here we go, Ralph's money saving tips. Well, some people would just say I'm tight, but actually I'm not. I'm using my common sense when it comes to shopping. If you've got fish, whether tropical or pond fish, this should take them forever to undo the top of this. You'll be familiar with those, won't you? Fish flakes. Those I buy in very large bags via the net, because if you buy them in these piddly little tubs, it's going to cost you a fortune. Buy a lot, store it in these airtight containers, and I don't know whether fish get bored with the same food or not. I do leave them at least 1 or 2 days a week when I don't feed them at all, so that, you know, they'll forage a bit more. But I also buy these pellets as well, and they appear on local markets. You can get them quite cheap in these big bags. But also I came across these in Poundland. Well, that's what they're meant for, birds. But fish absolutely love these. Very nutritious. Yeah, I know they're not. They're dead, you know. They're not pretty to look at, but you know, scrunch them up over the pond. They love those. So there's some tips on feeding fish. I'm sure people who keep fish full time have got other ideas. Oh yeah, mushy peas. They like those as well. But make sure, you know, put a teaspoon in the pond, but make sure there's no pea husks in them. They don't like them. You know, you just want the mush, the inside of the peas, but they will take those readily. Anyway, setting aside the fish stuff, shopping in general, because the price of food now is creeping up rapidly, and you know, we're all going to have to think very carefully about what we buy. I do anyway. I shop in a very unconventional way, and when I see something that I think that's a good price, and I know it will keep, then I'll buy a lot of it, because I'm going to buy it anyway, and I might as well buy it when it's at a cheap rate. I love Rice Krispies. The brand doesn't matter. I'm not, you know, I'm not affiliated with them anyway. But they, look, I mean, I've got reasonably large hands. These are big boxes. 85p a box, Lidl. So this week I bought 8 boxes, because I like Rice Krispies, and you know, they're going to last me for the next year, aren't they? Sensible. Also, I'm a very, very fussy tea drinker, and it upsets me when I hear people say, oh, I'll only drink PG, or I'll only drink Tetley. No, you've been sucked in by the brands. If you like a good cup of tea, I would highly recommend this. You can get it in Home Bargains. It's called Montgomery's Red Label Tea Bags. Relatively cheap, just over £1 a box for 160 bags. What I'd call mechanics tea. A really nice cup of tea. Bought 8 boxes of those. That's kind of the way you've got to think about shopping. And you know, it's no good going for something because, like for instance, if you buy 2 you get 1 free. Well, that's just a waste of time, because if you wouldn't normally buy it, you're not saving anything. You're kidding yourself. So only buy what you need to buy. But when there's something that you think, yeah, I'll, you know, like toothpaste, you're always going to use toothpaste, aren't you? It's not going to go off. But buy it in advance. Buy lots of it. Store it. Find a place in your house to store it. You'll save yourself an awful lot of money on shopping. Now, I said I'd show you this when it arrived. And as luck would have it, today is my birthday. I'm 63, not afraid to say that. But this arrived in the post. I ordered it from China. It's possibly the last thing I'll order from China, depending on how things go. But anyway, it's a software-defined radio. I've had one a little while. It's like a dongle that you just plug into USB socket on your laptop or your computer, but I really wanted a standalone one, and this one is, I'll talk a little bit about it anyway. It's about, I haven't got particularly big hands, but that's about 2.5 inches tall by about 3.5 inches across, and it's mostly touchscreen with some input from the tuning and volume control on the side. You can push those in to get into various modes. I've just discovered this one, which is for FM, and it covers absolutely, well, just about every band. Let me switch to that. Oh, there you go. I'm not sure what we're on at the moment, probably Coventry and Warwickshire, but yeah, if I go on to I'll tell you, there's nothing like shortwave, because, you know, when the world is in peril, that's the one thing that's going to continue running. And the nice thing about it, compared to most radios, you've normally got a dial, you go up and down, or just the numbers, but you can't actually see what's going on. But you can with this, and as you drift through, you see these little peaks, and there's a what's called a waterfall underneath. You see that blue line moving beneath. That's a visual indication of where there's a station. Well, you can't do that with a normal radio, can you? Anyway, a bit expensive, and it's a Chinese clone of a Russian radio, but it's fully fledged. It's got the latest firmware on it. It does everything it's supposed to do. The only thing is, you don't get a case with it. You've got to make a case for it, or 3D print one, which is probably what I'll do later this week. And but it will take a rechargeable battery. So and it's got all the connectors on the back, see, for battery and speaker, and so therefore you can charge it up and portable and sort of take it around with you, which I think is rather nice. So I shall put it in a case with a small speaker to go with it, and then I've got something that will more or less fit in my pocket. Obviously you need an aerial for it. The bigger the aerial you got, the better, but I've got a little portable one at the moment. But price wise, about 80 quid. Yeah, even as it is. But a amazing piece of kit, absolutely stunning. And like I say, I've enjoyed the dongle one for quite a while. There's nothing quite like shortwave. You can be there hours thinking, oh, I wonder what that is. And the other good thing about these is you can also listen to the satellites. You can download weather maps, that sort of stuff. Yeah, good bit of kit. Relatively new in technology terms, but, you know, now taking off. And I do have a couple of shortwave sets at home, but I'm going to say this beats it, yeah, hands down. So I shall probably sell my shortwave sets at some point. But yeah, it's got just about everything that you'd want to have a go at. There you go. Software defined radio. Oh, and happy birthday to myself. Well, being as it didn't come with a case, I decided I'll print one, but it's going to be about, I mean, just to give you an idea, this is the front of the case. It's laying face down. about 3 hours. Takes a while, but the nice thing is in a little CAD program you can kind of make any shape and print it. There's been a few times around the house where, you know, something's broken or snapped and I've just thought, well, I'll just print one, and it's worked out alright. But I haven't used ABS plastic, which is a bit sensitive to temperature and drafts. I'm still sticking to PLA, which is much easier to print with, but I don't know, if this works out alright, I might try printing a case in ABS. We'll see how we go. The other work that's gone on at Ralph's house this week hasn't actually been done by me. There are some jobs that I just wouldn't tackle. Plumbing is one of them. Electrics, fine with that. I don't have any issues with that. But if you look the outside of the front, the paint is peeling, and it is a job I've got to do. My son and I hopefully can get that done over the summer. I shall send him up the ladder. It's about time he contributed a bit. But what I didn't want to do was paint that bit right at the top, because well, you're on the extent of the ladders, and at 63 I don't think I should really be going up ladders, in all honesty. You know, if I was a tradesman who was doing that day in, day out, that would be different. But anyway, I had a couple of guys come along and replace the soffits. That's what the gutter screws do. So they replaced the guttering and the downpipe, which, by the way, was sound, but you can't do the soffits unless you take the guttering off, and you're never going to fit all that back on again. So I've gone for this UPV stuff, and also had the front of the, what do you call it, the apex, is it, above the top window, clad. It looks a lot tidier, and I won't have to paint that again. Actually, it's more for my son's benefit than mine. But there you go. Anyway, that's been done this week, and that cost me just over £1,000. I was lucky enough to find two guys that said, nah, I won't need scaffolding for that, I'll soon do that, and up they went and did it. You know, I guess they do it all the time. And obviously if you'd had scaffolding installed, that would have added to the cost. They reckon another £800. So at the end of the day, I can't complain. So although I'm unhappy to part with the 1,000, I'm relieved that I haven't got to go up and paint that again. I did ask, because originally they were timber on those things, and I asked about the condition of them, and what he said was, oh, you don't need to worry about the wood on these. So I said, why? He said, well, in the 30s, he said they used really well seasoned wood, good quality wood, not the sort of cheap pine that we get now, and it's tannalised. And he said, in fact, I've got to take a piece off to put on this cladding, I'll show you. And he did it. It was sound. So even though the paint was peeling off, the wood was absolutely perfect. So it just shows you. So rather than strip all that off, we just went straight over it, and that was it. That's that job done. Yeah, I know, it's classic FM, but this isn't Ralph's house. This is Ralph's bed. No wonder I haven't got any friends. See you next time. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.